Out of every single warning sign of a toxic boss, the one I'm about to share with you in spot number 4 is the one that quietly destroys careers more than anything else I've ever witnessed. Hey, what's going on? I'm Dre, and on this channel, we break down everything you need to know to protect your career, your income, and your sanity in the modern workplace. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next breakdown. Now let's talk about something almost every working adult has dealt with at some point, and that's the toxic boss. A while back, I made a video on red flags for a toxic workplace, and the comment section kept circling back to one specific theme over and over again. People weren't really complaining about their companies. They were describing one specific person who was making their work life a nightmare: their manager. And honestly, I've come to believe that a toxic manager is the single biggest factor in creating a miserable work environment. You could work for a great company with great coworkers and great benefits, but if your direct supervisor is a problem, none of that other stuff matters. So today, I'm walking you through 9 clear indicators that your boss is genuinely toxic, not just having a bad week, not just stressed out, but actually displaying behaviors that are designed, whether consciously or not, to make you smaller so they can feel bigger. If you're ready to find out whether your manager fits the pattern, smash that like button and let's get into it. Sign number 1 is chronic micromanagement. And I want to be careful here because plenty of managers micromanage occasionally, especially when a project is high stakes or when they're new to leading people. That's not what I'm talking about. A toxic boss micromanages constantly, on every project, on every task, and on every email you send. They want to approve your slide colors. They want to review your meeting agendas. And they want a status update on a status update. The thing about toxic micromanagement is that it isn't really about the work at all. It's about control. And the cost is enormous because you literally cannot do your job effectively when someone is breathing down your neck 24/7. Bonus points if your boss is also the type to fire off a frantic message at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night demanding you walk them through something you sent on Friday afternoon. That control problem flows directly into sign number 2, which is being relentlessly critical. Now look, your manager absolutely should be giving you feedback. That is a core part of their job. Real feedback, including the uncomfortable kind, is how you grow. But there's a massive difference between a manager who gives balanced feedback and a manager whose every comment is some flavor of disappointment. Ask yourself this: when was the last time your boss told you that you did something genuinely well, with no caveat, no but, and no follow-up critique? When you knock something out of the park, do they still find a thread to pull? Is the criticism they're giving you actually useful, or is it nitpicking, personal preference, or stuff that any expert in your field would shrug at? Constant criticism that doesn't actually make you better isn't feedback. It's a slow drip designed to eat away at your confidence. And toxic bosses are very, very good at it. That brings us to sign number 3, which is undermining you. The constant criticism we just talked about is often phase 1. Phase 2 is when your boss takes that pattern public. Maybe they correct you in a team meeting in a way that's clearly meant to embarrass rather than inform. Maybe they question your competence in front of a client. Maybe they joke about your work to your peers in a way that's framed as humor but is really designed to land. The end result is the same. Your reputation gets quietly chipped away, and your manager now has the perfect cover for their micromanagement. Because look at all the people who don't trust you. They're the ones who created that perception in the first place. This is one of the most damaging behaviors on this entire list, because once your reputation is compromised inside a company, the opportunities dry up. You stop getting the stretch assignments. You stop getting considered for the promotion. The latter just disappears. Now we've arrived at sign number 4, which is the one I mentioned at the very beginning. Of every behavior on this list, this is the one I've seen do the most lasting damage to the people I've worked with and coached over the years. Sign number 4 is that they refuse to acknowledge your accomplishments. I touched on this with the criticism point, but it deserves its own spotlight because a toxic manager will quite literally pretend your wins don't exist. You close the deal? Silence. You ship the project ahead of schedule? Silence. You save the team from a fire drill? Silence. Or worse, they take the credit themselves. This isn't just a confidence issue. Although it absolutely wrecks confidence over time, this is a paycheck issue. This is a career issue. Because if your accomplishments aren't being acknowledged, they aren't being documented. They aren't showing up in your performance review. They aren't being mentioned in calibration meetings when bonuses and promotions get decided. And on top of that, all of us occasionally need someone to tell us we're on the right track. That's not weakness. That's how humans work. When that signal never comes, you start spending energy in the wrong places, second-guessing the things you should be doubling down on. So this behavior doesn't just hurt you emotionally. It hurts your career trajectory in measurable dollar and cents ways. Sign number 5 is that they actively create obstacles for you. Yes, micromanagement and unfair criticism are part of this, but it goes deeper. A toxic manager will refuse to advocate for the resources you need. They'll deny you access to projects that would help you grow. They'll add approval steps that didn't exist before. They'll loop themselves into decisions that should be yours to make, and then sit on those decisions for days while the work piles up around you. I once worked with a manager who could turn a 30-minute task into a 3-week ordeal of meetings, revisions, and arbitrary new requirements. By the time you finally got the green light, the original opportunity had already passed. That's not bad management. That's deliberate friction, and it's specifically engineered to keep you stuck. The reason this is so insidious is because from the outside, it looks like you're the one who can't deliver. You're the one missing deadlines. You're the one who seems disorganized. The obstacle course they built for you becomes invisible to everyone else, and you absorb the blame for navigating it slowly. Sign number 6 is more subtle, but it might be the most reliable signal on this entire list. A toxic manager talks badly about other people. And I'll tell you something with full confidence. If your boss is openly criticizing your coworkers to you, they are also openly criticizing you to your coworkers. There is no version of reality where you're the exception. Toxic people drag others down because it's the only way they know how to feel taller. Their internal world is so harsh that they need the external world to match it. So they manufacture a story where everyone around them is incompetent or untrustworthy or lazy. And the trap here is that it can feel like a bonding moment. They're confiding in you. They're making you feel like an insider. Do not take the bait. The moment you start participating, you become both a co-conspirator and a future target. Stay above it. Sign number 7 is that they push you toward unethical decisions. This one ranges from the obviously illegal, things like falsifying numbers, hiding information from leadership, or retaliating against employees, all the way down to the everyday gray zone stuff like, just do it now and we'll deal with the fallout later. A toxic boss will normalize cutting corners, bending rules, and ignoring policies, and they'll often frame it as you being a team player. But this category also includes things that are flat out wrong, but still distressingly common in workplaces, like discrimination, harassment, and retaliation. If your manager is operating in this zone, you are not just in a toxic environment, you may be in a legally hostile one. And getting out becomes a priority, not a preference. Sign number 8 is a complete and total absence of accountability. This trait shows up in narcissistic and antisocial personality patterns generally, so it's no surprise it's standard issue for toxic bosses. When your manager makes a mistake, and they will, because everyone does, they will not own it. They will find someone else to pin it on. Sometimes it'll be a peer. Sometimes it'll be a vendor. Sometimes it'll be you. And the truly insidious part is that this lack of accountability is exactly why they will never get better. People grow when they reflect honestly on their failures. A boss who refuses to acknowledge any mistake has effectively locked themselves out of any growth, which means whatever they are doing to you today, they will still be doing 5 years from now to whoever's unlucky enough to land on their team next. And that brings us to sign number 9, the simplest and bluntest one on the list. Sometimes your boss is just a deeply unpleasant human being. They're rude, they're dismissive, they're cruel for sport. They snap at people in meetings. They roll their eyes at questions. They make passive-aggressive comments and then act surprised when anyone reacts. There's no elaborate framework needed here. When you combine garden-variety jerk behavior with any of the previous 8 signs, you don't have a difficult boss. You have a toxic one. And because of that lack of accountability we just covered, this is not the kind of situation that magically improves over time. The behavior is the destination, not a phase. Which leads me to my bonus point, and honestly, the most important one. You have to take action. Whether that means transferring to a different team, finding a different department, or running a full job search to leave the company entirely, doing nothing is not a neutral choice. Staying in a toxic environment under a toxic manager has real, measurable effects on your physical health, your sleep, your relationships, and your overall mental well-being. The longer you stay, the more you start to internalize their version of you. And that's the version that becomes harder to shake even after you've made it to the other side. I have other videos on exit strategies and interview prep if you need them. But while you're plotting your move, I want you to start doing one thing immediately, and that is actively cultivating positivity outside of work. When you spend 40+ hours a week marinating in negativity, you have to deliberately introduce the opposite into your evenings and weekends. Walks, hobbies, friends, hilarious shows, music, anything that resets your nervous system and reminds you that the rest of the world is not, in fact, your office. This is not optional. It's how you survive the in-between period until you're out. And it's how you make sure that when you do land in a healthy environment, you actually recognize it as healthy instead of waiting for the other shoe to drop. If this video helped you put a name to what you've been experiencing, tap that like button so it reaches more people who need it. And drop a comment letting me know which sign hit closest to home. Hit subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you in the next one.